The core conflict of World War II armored warfare was one of philosophy, not just metal. On the Axis side, German doctrine, formalized after the Blitzkrieg, became strangely rigid, centered on the quality of heavy, complex armor. The ultimate expressions of this were the Panther and the Tiger, massive vehicles whose design priorities were 80 mm to 100 mm of frontal steel and the immense power of the 75 mm and 88 mm main guns. These machines were inherently slow, often mechanically unreliable, and were engineered for frontal dominance. Their typical operational speed on tactical terrain rarely exceeded 20 mph. This fixation on weight and protection became the German tankers' collective blind spot, making them utterly unprepared for the American counter-philosophy, the tank destroyer. The M18 Hellcat, officially the 76 mm gun motor carriage M18, was not a tank. It was a mobile artillery piece built for pure ambush, and its singular defense was velocity. Its engineering was radical, driven by the requirement for an unprecedented tracked speed of 55 mph. This achievement rested on three pillars. First, the power plant, a 400-horsepower Continental R975C4 radial engine. While this engine was also used in the M4 Sherman, in the Hellcat it was coupled with a chassis that weighed nearly 10 tons less than the Sherman and 35 tons less than the Tiger. The resulting power-to-weight ratio was over 19 HP per ton, dwarfing the Tiger's 11 HP per ton and the Panther's 15 HP per ton. Second, the transmission. The M18 featured a cutting-edge Torque-matic automatic transmission, providing smooth, continuous power delivery at high speed, unlike the complex, multi-clutch German transmissions that required constant driver input and were prone to catastrophic failure under stress. Third, the suspension. It used a unique torsion bar system specifically optimized for high-speed cross-country stability. The engineers consciously designed the M18's armor, barely 12.7 mm, a half-inch on the front hull, to be its literal minimum, accepting penetration from nearly any German anti-tank weapon. This trade-off was the entire strategic point. The Hellcat was built to outrun the projectile, not absorb it. For the slow-moving German panzer crews, the very notion of a 55 mph tracked vehicle was not just a technical challenge, it was a conceptual impossibility that violated their understanding of armored warfare physics.
When the Hellcats, operated primarily by the U.S. Army's independent tank destroyer battalions, first met the formidable German armor in sustained combat, such as during the breakout from Normandy and, critically, at the Battle of Arracourt in September 1944, the resulting engagements were defined by tactical disorientation. German intelligence had completely failed to anticipate the Hellcat's speed, often misidentifying it as another slow variant of the Sherman. The German panzer crews were trained for a predictable duel: locate the target, estimate range, adjust for armor slope, and fire. The Hellcat rendered this training obsolete. The cornerstone of the M18's success was the shoot-and-scoot maneuver, a tactic perfectly enabled by its velocity. A Hellcat would use its superior road and cross-country speed to rapidly approach an exposed German flank, fire its 76 mm high-velocity round, which, while often insufficient for the Panther's front, was lethal to its thin side and rear, and then immediately accelerate to full speed. German gunnery, especially on the slow turreting Panther, could not acquire, track, or lock onto a target moving at 55 miles per hour on an oblique path. Historical records and German accounts frequently describe the M18 as vanishing from the sight picture. This phenomenon led to a profound overestimation of Allied numbers. At Arracourt, the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion, operating largely Hellcats, faced elements of the 5th Panzer Army. The speed of the Hellcats allowed a single vehicle to fire from point A, move hundreds of yards to point B, and fire again, making German crews believe they were facing multiple platoons, not just one or two vehicles rapidly repositioning. The psychological impact was immense. The German tankers were not being beaten by superior armor or firepower. They were being defeated by a concept they didn't respect: speed. The time required for a Panther crew to identify a threat, traverse their heavy turret, and bring the 75mm gun to bear often took 20 to 30 seconds. In that interval, a Hellcat at 50 miles per hour had traveled nearly 450 yards, shifting the angle of attack and rendering the Germans' meticulously calculated firing solution meaningless.
The cumulative effect of the Hellcat's velocity was to make it a ghost tank in the eyes of the Wehrmacht. The only audible clue was the distinctive, high-pitched whine of its radial engine under strain, a sound that signaled a threat operating outside the conventional pace of battle. This speed conferred an unmatched strategic flexibility. During the desperate defensive operations of the Battle of the Bulge in late 1944, the M18 proved invaluable not in tank-on-tank duels, but in rapid response and repositioning. American commanders, facing a massive German penetration, could strip Hellcat battalions from quiet sectors and dispatch them to the most threatened points. A deployment that might take a Sherman battalion 2 hours over icy roads could be completed by the Hellcats in under 1 hour, often arriving at the critical moment to establish a lethal ambush. This operational tempo, dictated entirely by the 55-mile-per-hour capability, effectively denied the German spearheads the necessary time to consolidate their gains before a strong defensive line materialized. In one documented instance during the Ardennes fighting, a Hellcat company was pulled from a deep reserve position and covered a 20-mile march to intercept German forces flanking Bastogne in less than 40 minutes. This level of armored mobility was literally 100% greater than anything the German logistics could sustain, much less their fighting vehicles could achieve. The 55-mile-per-hour Hellcat was thus the ultimate counter to German armored doctrine. It turned their focus on heavy, slow armor into a fatal vulnerability, proving that on the chaotic, fluid battlefields of the Western Front, the fastest tracked vehicle was the one that ultimately dictated the terms of engagement and delivered the most debilitating psychological and tactical surprise.